Hello, I'm Patsy Ramsey. Daddy's not here, but this is JONBENET. She's 4, Bert is 7, and we'd like to welcome you to our home and wish you a very Merry Christmas.
26 minutes into episode 1 of the Netflix documentary, we see a videotape labeled RAMSEY Christmas 1994 inserted into a VHS player. When last did you do that? After showing footage of Patsy with a 4-year-old JONBENET and a 7-year-old Burke, as well as Patsy saying, "Daddy's not here," John Andrew appears on the screen to remind people that prior to Christmas Day 1996, it's important to remember something.
It's really important to remember that prior to Christmas Day of 1996, we were just a regular family. Is he though?
Are they, though, a regular family? I've driven through the neighborhood where the Ramsey home is situated, and even by the standards of Boulder, that house is an outsized monster with a labyrinth inside. I'd also hazard to guess that most regular folks don't work for the world's largest defense contractor, and let's face it, it wasn't only John Ramsey who was a vice president of Lockheed. His father-in-law, Don Poor, and Patsy's 2 sisters, Pam and Polly, were both working for Lockheed as well, along with Glenn Stein, the husband of Susan Stein, aka Patsy's Pitbull, starting in mid-1997. Have a look at this excerpt from Patsy's 1995 Christmas newsletter. "We've finally given in to the computerized form letter! Exclamation mark. What better way to keep the high-tech industry in business! Another exclamation mark. Speaking of business, John and Access are going great guns. Europe has been successfully conquered with offices in every country except Norway! Exclamation mark. Mexico and Canada open too. Can you believe this grew out of our garage in Northridge?" And so that's an admission that Patsy was also part of the foundational work that went into building this business from scratch. Is this something you're really going to want to lose after all of that hard work? Anyway, John was rewarded by parent company Lockheed Martin by being elected an office of the company. So we are talking about working for Access Graphics, obviously as a subsidiary of Lockheed if you want to get technical. But the point is, how many people do you know that work for the world's largest defense contractor? Now the Ramseys, if it hasn't been made explicitly clear, were rich. The ransom note referred to John as a fat cat, and in Steve Thomas's book he writes that John, on paper, was worth around $7 million at the time JONBENET was killed. In fact, when Steve Thomas asked John Andrew in 1997 for his opinion on the identity of the ransom note writer, John Andrews said that they likely thought of his father and his family as rich bastards. He also described his stepmother as flashy. I would also go as far as to say one of the reasons the cops, perhaps even the district attorney, why so many people in Boulder were so cowed by the Ramseys and played second fiddle to them in the way that they did, allowing them to dictate terms not just during the kidnapping phase but subsequently, was due to their unusually moneyed status and along with that their powerful connections. Further, I don't think lawyering up the way the Ramseys lawyered up, 2 lawyers apiece for John and Patsy, a lawyer for his ex-wife and adult children in Atlanta as well. And didn't Burke Ramsey have his own lawyer? And that's besides the top dollar team John Ramsey assembled: Pat Corton, John Douglas, handwriting experts, 2 investigators, and on and on. I don't think that is a regular people thing to do, simply because most people don't have those kind of resources. Also, do regular people own a historic mansion as well as a summer home, 2 planes, that's a Beechcraft V-35 Bonanza and a Beechcraft King SC-90, and at least 2 boats, a sailboat called Miss America and a powerboat called Grand Seasons, and there may have been a 3rd boat as well called 10 O'Clock. Do regular people race in the prestigious and highly competitive Chicago-Mackinac Island race and finish 4th? And that's just John's side of the equation. Patsy's side was arguably even more extravagant, literally turning their home into a pageant. And that was in terms of the historic homes tour. The video you saw right at the beginning of that episode was to advertise for this historic homes tour. She also turned her own daughter into a veteran of child beauty pageants. That wasn't normal for Boulder or for most little girls. Just on the scale of Christmas, Patsy put large Christmas trees into every bedroom, JonBenet's room, Burke's room, the lounge, even a Santa on a sled outside, and a line of red and white candy canes leading to the front door. So I think it's fair to say one could see from a mile away that Christmas at the Ramseys was bigger and better than anywhere else. So why does John Andrew in 2024 try to emphasize how the Ramseys were just like regular folk? If I had to guess, I'd say because he wants to solicit the support and sympathy of regular folks. He wants his family to appear to resonate with middle America, the average American, which is the majority of people watching Netflix. But are the Ramseys who can go onto CNN with a snap of their fingers to tell their story on their own terms? So what do you think? Do you agree with John Andrew? Are the Ramseys really regular people?
That's a yes or no question.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Now, something that stands out in terms of the Ramsey case is narrative staging, or one could also call it narrative contrivance. Think about the Ramsey ransom note that distorts and makes things look very different to the way they actually were. Also think about this whole idea of a pedophile kidnapper who uses a garrote and has a stun gun and is this incredible sexual predator, this real monster. But then the garrote could actually be something else. The duct tape could be staged and many other things as well. I think about just that idea of distortion, and then also the idea of the Ramseys are just regular folk. Isn't that a distortion as well? Because I do think all of that wealth, extravagance, and Christmas, paintbrushes, pageants, and the dynamics of neglect, I think they play a bigger role in this case than forgetful phantoms armed with little more than a stun gun and a lot to say, but not a pen and paper. And this is one reason why the Ramsey case is so larger than life, because they were living so large.
You're all going to wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us.
It's also why, given this loud, extroverted, ostentatious exposure, it's so strange to think of JonBenet's brother, who has disappeared almost entirely from the ether surrounding this case, not John Andrew, the other brother, unless, of course, it's to announce another lawsuit. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. You will probably notice in this video and the one that's going to follow a whole bunch of footage and photos that you've probably never seen before. So look out for that. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please hit the thanks button and let's get started. And we want to start this whole analysis coming back to that VHS tape labeled Ramsey Christmas 1994 and John Andrew talking about Christmas Day 1996. Why isn't the tape labeled Ramsey Christmas 1996? Where is that tape? Now, I started off this analysis by referencing the Christmas of 1994 footage. Netflix then follows this up by showing what appears to be the Christmas of 1993. JonBenet is recorded driving a pink Lamborghini. I mean, literally at the same time that John Andrew is saying we regular people, his baby stepsister is driving a pink Lamborghini over the same carpet where her father would lay her body 3 Christmases later. And of course, this footage is recorded on John's camcorder. Again, do you mind me asking, we have video footage of the Christmas of 1993 and 1994. Where's 1996? There are a handful of stills from the Christmas of 1995, but do you see, as we get closer to the Christmas of 1996, the more the footage seems to fizzle into nothing? This is a photo from the Christmas of 1995. Are there any photos of John Ramsey from the Christmas of 1996? Is there a single one anywhere? Let's have a loud booming sound, an ominous bang. There's JONBENET and Patsy. There's JONBENET with Burke. And by the way, the wrapping paper emblazoned with a rocking horse is from a boutique store, toy store in Manhattan called F.A.O. Schwartz. That same wrapping paper was found in the basement, in the wine cellar. A fragment of it right beside JONBENET's body. It's hardly the kind of fare for regular people or regular children. I mean, Patsy literally went to New York to buy toys for her kids. And here's JONBENET in front of a bicycle, although in this image you can't really see the bicycle that's in front of her very clearly. You do see the bicycle behind her. And in these early days, in the early days when this footage came out, was the story that there were two bicycles. Patsy got a bicycle and JONBENET got a bicycle. So let's have a look at these three photos side by side. JONBENET on Christmas morning. These were long believed to be the sum total of all photos taken by the Ramseys that Christmas, as well as the last photos ever taken of JONBENET. But were they?
Far from it.
It's actually incredible when you look at just how many pictures of the Ramseys and JONBENET there are in the whole archive. It's incredible how few there are from the Christmas of 1996. Now, you may remember in 2016, on the 20-year anniversary of JONBENET's death, for the first time, several documentaries released never-before-seen interviews with JONBENET's brother Burke. This occurred on at least half a dozen different shows that year. Dateline, Dr. Phil, a slew of Apologia episodes released by A&E, and then, of course, culminating in CBS's The Case of JONBENET Ramsey, which was sued for $750 million. In the following year, in 2017, the Neutral as Neutral Can Be, Safe as Houses, Casting JONBENET was released. This was a film that didn't really speculate about who did what. Next, and quite predictably, silence and paralysis followed. In 2018, there were no documentaries. Then in 2019, A&E and Elizabeth Vargas, that's the reporter who interviewed Linda Arndt, retold the quote-unquote untold story of the DNA in Hunting JONBENET's Killer, The Untold Story. Vargas even went out to Utah and interviewed John Ramsey directly. For her trouble, or perhaps simply just out of the fabric of looking at this case, a brand new photo emerged of JONBENET taken Christmas night, mere hours before her death. It was this photo. While it's easy to be surprised, astounded, even shocked by this image, what many miss is that this image was actually deliberately withheld for 23 years. And since this image appeared in Ramsey Apologia, who is the person most likely to have handed it out, to have said, hey, do you want to use this? Because it does seem as if it was deliberately kept out of the media narrative, and who knows, perhaps the police files possibly as well, for 23 years. If that is the case, why? And why release it then in 2019? Well, any new footage in the Ramsey case is worth a great deal, not just in an evidentiary sense, but for storytellers as well, for documentarians, for reporters, and obviously for ourselves, the audience. So if you wanted to give your story which supports your innocence an additional boost, adding a photo or footage that's never seen the light of day is sure to build hype, and in this case, it did. From as far away as Ireland and I think even New Zealand, this new release of the last image of JONBENET made waves. All of that aside, there is a very important clue in this photo, and that's the hair ribbon JONBENET is wearing. She was wearing the same ribbon when she was found deceased in the basement, and it's clearly visible against the carpet in the lounge where her father laid her down. Now, I don't really want to emphasize the ribbon aspect here, just the fact that keeping this image back means you can't join the dots as easily in terms of the hair ribbon. I mean, I've never heard anyone in law enforcement talking about this aspect. The significance of this is potentially huge. This ribbon, along with the two ponytails, strongly suggests JONBENET wasn't put to bed that night in the way we've been led to believe. And in my opinion, JONBENET never went to bed that night. Of course, it's also possible that she was put to bed with ponytails and all, and she got up later herself. It's easy to forget the dozens of documentaries that came out, not just in 2016, but in the many years prior, 1997, 1998, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. And bear in mind, during that entire period was this whole thing going on with the grand jury, right? We didn't know what really happened with the grand jury. And the fact that this image didn't appear in any of these documentaries, well, is because it wasn't made available. What's also interesting is you will need to try extremely hard to find any single documentary today, subsequent to 2016, that is brave enough to look at this last photo and draw a single inference from it. Because remember what happened the last time anyone did that, in 2016. So this image is innocently added to the narrative. 2019 comes and goes, and the narrative apologia just moves on, as if nothing has happened. Then in 2021, there was an uptick in documentaries, all of them obviously apologia. There was JONBENET's What Really Happened, released by Discovery Plus. And also 2020's The List, produced by Carol McKinley. In 2021, not one but 3 brand new images emerged out of the RAMSEY archive. For the first time in 25 years, this image, have a look, was revealed, included prominently on director Kim Duke's title page, advertising and promoting her documentary. And if you think back to 2021, it's a 25-year anniversary. It's a big deal. It's the biggest deal since the 20-year anniversary. But 2016 and 2021 were very different. In 2021, you kind of had a mixture of some documentaries dealing with the intruder theory and some documentaries dealing with the Ramseys as suspects. In 2021, completely different. Just intruder theory-based apologia and the release of this image. 2 additional images were also released in Duke's documentary, apparently from Easter time 1996. All 3 images apparently showed the Ramsey siblings side by side getting along. Of course, what's easy to miss in all of this warm and fuzziness was the pineapple sitting on the kitchen table. Remember, it wasn't just pineapple, but a green rind that was found in JONBENET's small intestine during the autopsy, and that suggested that she'd eaten freshly cut pineapple, not canned pineapple. And if you can imagine canned pineapple being brought into the house by an intruder, silly but I guess possible, it's very unlikely that he would bring a fresh pineapple to the Ramsey home. Again, what's staggering to contemplate is that these photos were held back, kept out of the media narrative until the lawsuit was settled with CBS, which occurred behind closed doors on January 5th, 2019, the same year documentaries resumed after a 3-year hiatus. And let's be clear, all of these documentaries that did resume were all apologia. Now, believe it or not, all of that is a broad overview to the photographic narrative. In the next analysis, we'll dig even deeper into additional aspects, additional layers surrounding the murky selective release of media and how all of this led to the inevitable distortions to the current narrative. We'll also look at brand new footage that was released in this Netflix docuseries. Does anyone know what it is? Anyway, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you very much for listening this far. Take care, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.